Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be going over how to Superglide in Apex Legends, and yeah, I've just been getting asked a lot how to do it consistently on Twitch lately, so I figured I'd go ahead and make my own video. I do know there's a lot of videos out there already, but hopefully regardless you can still find some value in this video. And I know a lot of people that already do know how to Superglide watch Superglide videos just to try to get the timing down. So real quick, I am going to show you guys how to do it in both first and third person, slowed down with the keyboard cam as well, just so you can see the timing real quick, and then we'll go ahead and break down everything. Real quick, before I do that, I just want to say that I do have an AC on in the background, so I genuinely do apologize if you hear any fan or background noise at all. It's just simply too hot today not to have the AC on in this room. I do apologize. If it is too loud, I'll probably just record this video on a different day or just try to get as much of that out of the background as I possibly can. But hope you guys enjoy it, and yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so what is a Superglide? A Superglide is when you climb an object and you input jump and crouch immediately when you reach the height of your climb, and it looks like this, like that. You just get a massive speed boost at the height of your climb. It's a very useful technique to use when you're trying to surprise your enemies or just do some weird cool clip stuff and put it on Twitter or whatever. So yeah, let's go ahead and break down everything that kind of goes into super gliding. So first of all, we're going to talk about keybinds, right? The most important part of this is making sure you're comfortable doing this, right? So a lot of people crouch with control, which is completely fine, but it might be a little bit harder to actually hit a super glide doing that. So I recommend trying at least putting crouch as a secondary bind as C, V, B, or X. I normally crouch with C anyways with my thumb, so it's just pretty natural for me to do this. It might not be for some of you, which is why I recommend at least trying it this way. The reason you want to try it this way is because when you super glide, you press jump and then crouch. Jump has to come ever so slightly before jump, and when you bind it to a key that kind of surrounds spacebar, you can kind of roll your thumb into the crouch, right? So I'm pressing space and then crouch right after with one finger roll, rather than separating the keybinds into two different inputs. So for example, if I crouched with control, I'd have to press spacebar with my thumb and then crouch with my pinky, which kind of adds just a little bit more potential delay or potential to make a mistake, in my opinion. So I prefer to kind of do the thumb rolling method, and I crouch with C anyways with my thumb, so it's really just for me just preference. But I strongly recommend, if you're struggling, try it that way. I promise it's for the most part easier, in my opinion. All right, so let's go ahead and hop over to the Superglide Trainer. This is really the first step in learning how to Superglide, is getting the actual timing down. So set jump to whatever you use, crouch to whatever you use, and then set your FPS to what you normally use in game, right? So real quick, this is an FPS based movement tech, meaning that the lower your FPS, the easier this movement tech will be. The higher the FPS, the harder it will be, because the window of actually hitting the keybinds for it is a lot smaller. That doesn't mean it's not doable, it just means it is harder. Some people will actually have an easier time on higher FPS just because they click the inputs faster, right? So it really just comes down to what you're used to and all that good stuff and how quick you are with it. I do not recommend lowering your FPS in real games specifically just to do this technique. But if you're having trouble super gliding on your regular FPS, lowering your FPS just for practice purposes can always be a good idea to try to get the tech down. And once you practice it on lower FPS and get it consistently, raise it up slowly and slowly and slowly until you reach your normal FPS. But again, I do not recommend tanking your FPS just to be able to do this technique in real games. There's another technique called the ledge sliding, which is basically the same thing, a lot more consistent. It's just slightly slower and slightly more predictable, but it is overall probably more useful in the long run in terms of consistency and real-time usage. So we'll break that down in a little bit as well, but real quick, let's go ahead and talk about this. So basically, self-explanatory, you just press the Superglide keys right after you hit start, and you're just going to want to practice them. Obviously, I have the timing down relatively well, but for example, let's say I press crouch a lot later than spacebar, right? So I crouched too late by 2.9 frames. So what this is informing me is that I need to press crouch faster after spacebar. Vice versa as well. If I press crouch first, it says crouch later by 2.3 frames. This just means that I'm crouching before I'm jumping, right? So practice the timing down, try to get it down. If you really can't get it down on your regular FPS, then lower it a bit and practice it on that. It should be a little bit easier for you. This is going to be a lot easier if you have like a Wu-Ting keyboard, because you can actually program the activation point to make it so you can actually physically press the keys at the same time. For the sake of this video, I do have a Wu-Ting, but I have all of my activation points set to 1.0. If you guys are curious about what settings I use for my Wu-Ting, I have all my Wu-Ting profile in my Discord if you want to join my Discord, and I will put the link to it in the description as well. But anyways, once you feel like you have gotten this down, we're going to go ahead back onto Apex. And before I actually show you super gliding and how to practice it consistently, I will show you ledge sliding, since I did talk about that. So all you have to do, I like to hold sprint before the climb, but realistically you can just do it when you get to the top. But all you do is climb the object while holding sprint, and then as soon as you start going forward, you just slide. Oh, I'm lagging because I just tapped it back in. But yeah, that's really all there is to it. You can do it off of objects too, like this. But it's just a very easy movement tech to do, and it's very similar to super gliding with a lot less downside if you mess it up, right? It's a lot easier to do. It's a lot more consistent. Whether or not you use super gliding and you're consistent with it, I strongly recommend using this movement technique in your day-to-day gameplay, because there's a lot of situations that you actually will get a little bit more control out of ledge sliding than super gliding. Anyways, that's how you ledge slide. Let's talk about how to super glide consistently. We practiced it on the Superglide Trainer. You don't have to worry about how high you have to climb on any object in that. You just press the keys and you just have to get the timing down, right? Whereas when you get into a real game, you have to worry about how high you need to climb. For example, I get to the height of my climb a lot faster on this ledge than I do here. And because of that, I have a little bit more time on this ledge to think about when to press the keybinds down. Whereas on this one, it's a little bit faster, so it's a little bit more instant. I have less time to kind of process that information. So it's really important to kind of understand that this isn't a timing-based technique other than when you reach the height of the ledge, right? This doesn't become a timing based technique until you reach the apex of your climb, is what I'm trying to say. So how do we practice that and get that down consistently? The first way I suggest doing it is practicing in third person. There is actually two methods you can use to kind of like understand this real time, but I think practicing this in third person is very beneficial, especially if you're just learning, because you can get a very good idea of when your feet reach the ledge, especially if you use ledges like this that have this gold bar on the top of it. As soon as your feet hit that gold bar, that's when you kind of want to hit the inputs for super gliding. And it's just really easy to visually see that when there's something like this gold bar here. But yeah, just practice it in third person for a little bit, see if you can get it down on various different objects, and then what you're going to want to do is go back into first person, which is what you would use in a real game. And there's two methods to get this down consistently. One, a lot of people like to picture their feet reaching the height of their climb. The one problem with this is when you play different characters, for example, if I switch to Pathfinder, I'd be a little bit taller, so the timing would be a little bit different, right? So since I'm smaller, this climb is actually a little bit bigger than it would be as if I was on Pathfinder. The climb would be a little bit smaller, making the timing a little bit quicker. Like you have to input the keybinds to the Superglide a little bit earlier into your climb if you're somebody that's a taller character, right? So the timing can be affected ever so slightly based on what character you're playing, especially like I'm a Wraith main. So when I play like a tall character like Revenant or Pathfinder, my Superglides definitely do not feel as consistent because I typically do use the like picturing when my feet reach the height of the climb method. As soon as you reach the climb, that's when like I'm just visualizing that in my head, like my feet touching the top and then super gliding. The other method, which I think is much easier, but I always forget in a real game, is using the shake method. So every time you climb, your screen actually shakes, and it's very, very easy to notice that if you look at the corners of your screen. It might be hard to see that during a YouTube video, and it's going to be a little bit difficult if you're just now learning this to kind of understand when that moment is that you need to input the Superglide timing for based off the shake. But basically, you just do it as soon as it starts slowing down, right? As soon as that shake kind of like gets to its near to its end, that's when you want to input the super glide timing. And you can kind of get a good feel of that by climbing various different sized walls. The higher the wall is, the longer the shake goes on for. So you can kind of get a decent idea of what it looks like when it starts to slow down. So that's another very good method to use to get that down. But either one works just fine. I think if you play a character consistently, like I'm a Wraith main, I pretty much have all of my hours on Wraith. I really just like to use that visualization method where I just picture my feet hitting the top. All right, so once you feel like you're getting this down consistently, we can start to get a little bit more advanced with it by adding different movement techniques and also directional inputs as well to super gliding. So for example, what I mean by that is I can super glide to the left and to the right as well. I'm not very good at doing it to the right. It's still something I'm practicing, but there we go. So basically all I'm doing is I'm climbing the object, and right as I get to the height, I'm letting go of W and I'm pressing A or D instead, and then super gliding. But then we can take this a step farther and add things like lurches, right? So I can super glide to the left and then lurch immediately after by pressing SD, and I go straight back like that. Very useful. And then you can also add tap strafes like that. I can go left and then tap strafe back to the right kind of thing. You can tap strafe out of it normally as well, of course, which is very useful. And then you can also use your abilities to gain even farther distance and faster super glides. For example, I can Q, hit a super glide, and I go even faster and farther than I would have without Q. And you can kind of use that same concept with Alt as well. Something really cool that you can do with Wraith is, if you didn't know, when you place a portal, you can actually, if you stay within 5 meters, you can place your portal down and cancel the alt. So you can utilize this for super gliding to gain even more speed, right? So you can hit your alt, climb an object, put it down as you hit the super glide timing, and you cancel your alt and get even more speed out of it.
Follow the tunnel.
But regardless, you can still do that with a good amount of speed boost by pressing Q as well. You can do that on Octane as well. You can do a lot of crazy lurching with Horizon, so adding super gliding and then lurching with it as well kind of gives you a lot of options with Horizon, which is kind of fun and cool. She's just a really fun character to do like movement text like this because you have so much more control while you're in the air with her. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up the video. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you don't mind dropping a like, I would appreciate it. And let me know if you have any other questions about super gliding in general, or if you guys want to learn any other movement text. I do stream every day at about 10:30 p.m. EST, so if you guys ever want to come in and ask me questions about these movement texts or just hang out or whatever, feel free to go check out my Twitch. Link will be in the description to that. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. The Superglide Trainer is in the description as well. I'm sure you figured that. But yeah, drop a like if you liked it, and I love y'all. Peace.